Hey, what's up? It's Comic95 the Savior, and for this video I want to talk about 20 of my regrets that I have from having been here in Japan. So if you've watched my YouTube videos and you've seen my journal videos, etc., I have a lot of videos about negative stuff here, and everything is not bad, but I do want to, reflect on my personal life. I think it feels good to share some of these things that I've talked about in videos, but not directly so much, and I'm not going to go into a ton of detail in order to keep it from being too long because it's already 20 points, so we're looking at an hour video right there. So yeah, let me just get into it. So I want to first start off by saying that my life is not perfect. I am not perfect, and I want to give you a real picture of what Japan is like and not a fake one. It's easy to pretend like everything is cupcakes and rainbows here and everything is fun every day, and not to say that there aren't good and fun things in Japan, but we go through hard times and we make mistakes. I came here when I was young, I'm still young, and I'm probably going to make a lot more mistakes before I die, so it just feels good to open up and share those things with other people. So I appreciate those of you that see me as like an inspiration and I inspire you to come here, etc. But I also don't want to scare you away from coming to Japan. Everything's not bad, I promise. If it was, I would have left here a long time ago. But I just want to kind of reflect and share things that I do think I should have done differently, or that I wish I had done differently. You know how the saying goes, hindsight is always 20/20. That's really a bad saying to say nowadays, but anyway, let's get to it. Okay, so number one. I hate to say this because it sounds hypocritical because of my current situation, but hear me out. Number one, focusing too much on trying to have and or find a boyfriend. I feel like a lot of time was just wasted focusing on that, where it really hurt me in other areas of my life, where it became an obsession, and it's definitely not something that I need or needed. Number two, letting my anxiety stop me from trying out new restaurants here. A really weird and embarrassing situation that I don't know how to explain, but I suffer from really bad social anxiety. I can't explain what goes on inside of my mind, but I overthink everything. Don't be fooled by this personality that you see on YouTube. This is the real me. But when I go out in public, I cannot be this person. I feel like a completely different person. I overthink everything I do, and I know where it stems from. It comes from being abused as a child, and you would think it would wear off by now, especially since I'm a teacher. But the crazy thing about things like anxiety and OCD is that you realize your thinking is irrational, but you can't help it. So anyway, my fear was I didn't want to go to restaurants because there were so many different things I wasn't used to. I was afraid of embarrassing myself. Was I supposed to push that door, or do I pull it? Will there be an English menu? I couldn't read Japanese at the time. I didn't know how to get my waiter's attention. Even now, I don't like having to call over a waiter. I'm more opted to choose a restaurant where I can just press the little buzzer to send them over. So just letting my anxiety get the best of me, being afraid of making mistakes when ordering, being afraid of going to a restaurant and the staff not liking foreigners or not liking black people. So just overthinking everything. There were so many cool places that I would have loved to have tried when I lived in Tokyo, but I refused to go because, again, I was just super afraid of what might happen if I did go to that place. Number three, failing my university classes. Yes, I said it. I've kind of hinted to this in the past in other videos, but a lot of people think my time here as a student in Japan is over, which is not. I'm actually still going to school, but I'm also working full-time now. But I really messed up my first year here. Again, because I was so focused on trying to have a boyfriend and just throwing myself out there and just going out of my way to look for a boyfriend. I really messed up things with school. I wasn't going to classes, I ditched class, etc. I just did a whole bunch of stupid stuff. And my professors were so nice, they tried so hard to pass me, and they were the ones that were proactive in reaching out to me. I did not accept it, and I did the bare minimum. And I can be honest and say that some of the classes that I passed, I shouldn't have. My professors just really wanted to help me that much. I remember one of my classes, I actually went to finals, and I decided at the last minute, because they changed the location, that my social anxiety alarm went off, and I was like, nope, I'm not about to be the last one showing up there. So I literally did just really, really stupid, irrational things that caused me to fail and miss out on stuff. Number 4, not attending parties because of, once again, excuse the noise, my chair, because of my social anxiety. I avoided going to social parties and events, etc., because I was afraid of being alone, being the only one there, loner, single one out. And my experiences where I did go to parties with my friends, I always kind of felt like I was that awkward third wheel there. Like, people were more interested in talking to the other foreigners and not me, and I didn't know any Japanese like how they did, and I just felt like this big fat black blob that didn't belong anywhere. So when I did go a couple of times after that, I was like, no, I'm never doing this again. And it really hurt me in the long run. I really regret that. I wish that I had just put my big girl pants on and muscled through and went and enjoyed myself and let people come to me on their own terms instead of comparing myself to everyone else. Number 5, overspending on clothing and games. I did switch up my clothes more my first year here, I'll be honest. But for the most part, I pretty much stuck to my, 3 to 5 favorite outfits. But I bought a ton of clothes. A ton of stuff ended up going in the trash or getting stained and damaged or even stolen. I didn't need that many, different outfits. And as for video games, I was so busy going to school, working, partying for the little bit that I did, that I didn't play them much. It was a total waste of money, waste of time to buy these clothes, to go shopping for these games. I even found myself buying video games that I personally wasn't into, but the person that I was dating was. I've bought expensive accessories for my PlayStation, even my game console itself. I won't lie, I was a gamer before I came to Japan, but I was having so much fun here and I was so happy to have my new cell phone and my new laptop that I didn't really care so much for video games at the time. And even now, as I've gotten older, I'm so busy with other things, and it seems like there aren't any games that I feel excited about like how I used to as a child. So I feel like my whole thing in buying that was really just to try to impress other people, and it was a waste. Again, I didn't change my clothes that much. There were so many clothing items that I either never wore, or I wore for a photo or once or twice out in public and then never wore it again, and it ended up getting stained, stolen, whatever. So I just really regret the money that I wasted that could have gone towards paying off, my debt to my school. It was just a bad decision. Number 6, overspending on my dates or boyfriends and my friends. Now, there were a few different reasons why I did this. For starts, my, love language, whatever, is gifts of affirmation as well as quality time. I am someone that feels most loved when people buy things for me and when they give me their time. I, of course, value time over gifts, but because this is what I love, I normally try to give people both of those things from me. And of course, everyone's love language is different, but unfortunately, gullible, stupid me, I ended up getting my heart broken. I wasted so much money, not just on buying guys expensive gifts, but even little things like paying for hotels or paying for half on a restaurant with the guy that was just a total fuckboy, or insisting that I pay for the entire date because I know I have thousands of dollars on me from my student loans. So that's definitely a really big regret that I have. And as for friends, I always try to be nice. I'm that friend where it's oh, if we go out to eat, I'll pay for everything. I don't do that split bills thing. I want to take care of you. I asked you out, even if it were your idea. If I know I have more money than you, or even if I don't, I'm just that generous, nice person, and unfortunately, I stupidly spend beyond and outside of my means trying to make other people happy. And this obviously hurt me in the long run because, of course, I was left with bills. I was left in situations where I was nearly homeless and out in the street. I've had my, electricity and, water and gas turned off. I've had the police called and come to my place from crazy guarantor companies, all kind of stuff that made me regret spending this money on people that turned out to not really be my friends. I'm not in contact with any of those people that I splurged money on, trying to have fun with and impress them. So again, there was some pros to this. I enjoyed the time that I was with these people. I had a good meal. I had a good laugh. I enjoyed that night at karaoke, whatever we did together. But it's definitely a regret. I wasn't reciprocated, and I realized that I was overspending and doing too much trying to impress other people. We could have definitely had fun at a much cheaper restaurant, cheaper karaoke bar. I did not need to go to a Love Hotel, or at least not an expensive one. So just so many regrets as far as spending money goes. Number 7. This one's personal for me, but actually forgetting about God. I feel like I wasn't really caring about my personal religion, which for me, I don't consider myself to be a religious person, and I hate to sound cliche, but I believe in having a relationship with God. Christianity, your faith, shouldn't just be about I read my Bible, I go to church, but at the same time, it does kind of keep you grounded and keep you sane. And I feel like a lot of the issues that I have, I could have avoided if I spent more time reading the Bible and praying to God and just going to church. Those were experiences that I didn't really do in Tokyo. I had very limited experience with church. I never went to a physical church while I was in Tokyo, but I did, I actually taught lessons to a pastor before, coincidentally. But yeah, I feel like I pretty much left God behind, and that explains a lot of the problems that I had with my life during my first year. So that's definitely been a regret for me. Number 8, having casual sex to cope with depression and trying to play a numbers game. Again, personal, but just being totally honest, feels good to reflect, to come clean, talk about my own life. I was someone who did these things to make myself feel better. I thought that maybe I was being too uptight. Maybe I should be more willing to sleep with guys. Maybe that'll help me get a serious relationship or boyfriend. And so while I wasn't someone that ran around and had sex with 600 people, pretty much any guy that I had a relationship with, I had sex with him, which wasn't a ton of people, but it was more than what I definitely would have liked to have, because again, I only met these few people for a short period of time, and I didn't even know them well enough to realize that they weren't serious about me. I didn't know their culture well enough. I didn't know their language well enough. And it ended up hurting me in the long run. It didn't make me feel happy. It just left me feeling sadder and more depressed. And I did not get a relationship out of it. So it was not worth it in the long run. It wasn't worth it. I wish that I had better saved myself and protected my body. And it's a regret, but I can be honest and admit that I've made some mistakes. Number 9. While this shouldn't be a bigger regret than number 8, to be honest, for me it is. I really regret not being nicer to my roommates. So this is something that's really hard for me to be honest with, guys. And I did talk about this in a blog post and in an older video, but I did become mean near the end of my time that I was at my share house in Tokyo. I became super irritable. I was like Scrooge. It got to the point where even although I hadn't even been in Tokyo for a year, in Japan for a year for that matter, I started off in Tokyo. For those of you that don't know, I got to the point where I was the senior in my share house. And so people would come to me for advice or for tips, and I would answer their question, but I'd be really nonchalant. Or sometimes I would just act like I didn't know. I didn't speak to new people when they came in. You could tell that I was just angry and annoyed. I was having light wars with my roommates. They would like to leave the lights on in the middle of the night. They wouldn't go to bed till 12 and 1 a.m. Studying. And I'm like, dude, go to the kitchen. Why? Or the people that would be in the kitchen, they would leave the hallway light on. It's just leave the kitchen light on. People are trying to sleep. And so of course I have school in the morning. I have work. I don't want to have to deal with that mess. But I went about it the wrong way, being passive. And it was definitely a regret. I could have made more friends. I could have been, a light to people that might have been struggling or having other issues. I could have shared the knowledge that I had. I feel like as I watched my friends leave that share house, I became more and more sad and lonely, and I kind of took it out on other people. So don't get me wrong. Like I said, things like lights and playing music and farting and just being dirty and turning off the heat when it's freezing cold, which got me sick 3 times. I had the right to be mad. But at the same time, again, I should have been the bigger person. I should have handled it differently and recognized there's cultural differences in the way that we handle, believe, and do stuff. So that's that. I do regret not being more kind to the people that I interacted with at my share house. I wish I could redo that. Number 10, not studying or using Japanese. I actually took Japanese my first semester here in Japan and I learned nothing. And I will say that I do believe a lot of it had to do with the fact that the class was too rushed. It wasn't really designed to help you learn Japanese. It was more like a review crash course. But again, I will admit I could have learned more had I actually put my mind to it and tried to study. I spent the bare minimum amount of time studying. I probably went on more dates, spent more time on dates, having fun, having sex, going to karaoke bars, eating at expensive restaurants than I did actually in class during my first semester. And the sad thing is, I'm not exaggerating. I missed a ridiculous amount of days. I came in late a ridiculous amount of times, which is pretty weird and ironic considering the fact that I do have social anxiety. But I mostly just didn't come to class if I was going to be late, in which I was going to be late a lot of days, which gives you an idea as to what was going on. And yeah, definitely a huge regret that I shouldn't have done. Because I was so busy running around and doing my own thing, I wasn't learning any Japanese. Even after I was done with my first year, I couldn't read hiragana, katakana. I couldn't speak a lick of Japanese. Like, I literally had learned like 5 words after all that time. And it really hurt me because I started meeting people that had only been here for 3 or 4 months. And here I was, having been here for 8 months, 10 months, 1 year. And they knew way more than I did. They could run circles around me. So that was really like humiliating in that sense, especially since I was going to university and I wasn't, going to language school or some other type of school. I really had no excuse. I was paying a lot more money for an education, and here this person is, they know way more than I do. So not to say that comparing yourself to other people is good either, but it's not just a matter of like someone being someone that grasped language easier. It was simply a matter of me not studying, not trying. I had no interest. I did everything in English and I was fine with it. I was enjoying my life, having fun, and it's definitely a regret. I think of how much more I would have learned and absorbed my first year if I actually tried. Literally the moment that I moved to Kansai, I learned how to read fluently. I learned just so much so fast because I had to rely on it more. I was in the countryside of Kyoto and there were no English signs. There wasn't English readily available for me. And eventually, my boyfriend was gone. So I was left to fend for myself. I had to figure out how to get around. I had moments where my phone died and I was like, oh my God, I have to ask for help without a phone, no internet. So just really like crazy stuff that was going on inside of my mind, trying to impress other people, trying to have a boyfriend. It caused me to not care to study Japanese. It caused me to not care to speak it, read it, write it, nothing. I didn't try it. And if you live in Tokyo, you know this, that you really do not need to know any Japanese. Like, everything is in English. Osaka can be the same way too, but Tokyo by far is way more easily accessible with English because of the heavy, amount of tourists. Pretty much every store I went to, any major store had English speaking staff. So like, you didn't need to know anything in Japanese. Like, the staff was actually worried about their English. So more so than you were worried about your Japanese ability. So that's that. Number 11, not trying Japanese food. So while I did try some things, I really limited the amount of Japanese food that I tried. I ordered a lot of Domino's, a lot of Pizza Hut. I ate a lot of sandwiches. I just ate a lot of junk food. And even when I would cook food, I would mostly cook American style food. I made like no effort to really try authentic Japanese food. I made no effort to try to cook Japanese food. I didn't experiment with trying many different things at the grocery store. And the few things that I did try, they were, Japan's take on Western food. So Japan's take on pizza or, croissants or something like that. Something that, of course, you're going to end up liking, or at least it'll be okay. But I didn't try like beef bowls or, I don't know, tonkatsu, like just things like that. I didn't try real Japanese food. And when I did try Japanese food, it was really just like kokoichi. And I literally had the exact same curry every time. Like, didn't try anything new. I really limited myself, and I regret not experimenting more with food. So not just that, going to restaurants, but just eating actual Japanese food. Because even when I would go out to eat, again, I would be eating American style food or Western style food. I wasn't really ordering so much Japanese stuff. Number 12, not taking more pictures. While I do have tons of pictures, I feel like I didn't take as many pictures as I wanted to, especially of like sightseeing and scenery, both of myself at these locations as well as the, atmosphere around me. Again, social anxiety. I get camera shy. I didn't want to take up my camera and be the tourist person taking photos. And I didn't want to look like some cocky bitch taking, a million pictures of themselves in front of this tower or whatever. So I really regret that, especially now because my camera has been messing up. I have an actual regular digital camera, or DLR, whatever you call it, but I normally use my cell phone because it's easier to use, small in my hand. I don't have to carry a big heavy thing around. So yeah, I regret not taking more photos and worrying too much about what other people think about what I look like, or what, whatever, me taking a picture of the environment. And I was afraid of people thinking I'm taking a photo of them when I want to take a picture of just the atmosphere and everything. And I'm not trying to be a creep and get your individual picture. Number 13, losing contact with my friends after moving. I have briefly talked about this in another video, but I don't think you guys understand like how severe and serious the situation was. I literally have had so many suicidal meltdowns here in Japan, without exaggeration, where I've just gone and deleted everything and planned to kill myself. And of course, once I would calm down, come back to earth, I would regret it. And unfortunately, one of the first times that I did this, I wasn't thinking, and it caused me to lose contact with almost all of my friends. There were some people that I had added on Facebook because they insisted on adding me on Facebook, which I was like, I don't use Facebook, which I really didn't back then. I didn't even have a Facebook page or share memes or anything. I did not use Facebook, but I added them just to make them happy, and I was so grateful that I did because I was able to get back in contact with those people. But there were so many more people that were important to me, including the main person that actually drove me to go meet my boyfriend in the first place, which was Masa. I've never been able to find him ever since then. I lost contact with him. The only contact information I have from him was on the Line app, and I actually met him through Japan Friends, which if you're an old schooler in Japan, you know about this pen pal site that used to exist, which the site is still there, but they no longer allow, you to send messages. So there's too many messages that I have, and I can't find where his message was that we exchanged. And I also don't know if he actually messaged me before adding me online, because if I recall, I think I had my Line ID just listed in my ad for, pen pals. So long story short, I met this guy before I came to Japan. We talked, exchanged messages, and after I came here, he, we met. He introduced me to his wife. I met his friends. We had fun together, and I think he was in the Air Force or something. So he's in the U.S. military, but he's Japanese. Long story short, I regret losing these friends and connections, and I had a really good friend in Yokohama, which I've shared pictures and videos from on Instagram, where we went to a Cuba festival, and he showed me this really cool and really sad cemetery that they had for foreigners, which I thought was kind of racist, in Japan, where they literally have a separate burial site. So I have mixed feelings on that, but this video is not about that. But yeah, I regret losing contact with some of my friends after I moved and had a meltdown and just got rid of everything. I actually deleted some of my YouTube videos during this time too, which I've talked about that briefly before as well. And yeah, it's also a regret too. Number 14, kind of a continuation of 13, but letting go, I'm sorry, my chair, letting go of my students, and I feel like I didn't do it in a very professional way either. I really would have wanted to stay in contact with a couple of my students who I really, really loved to death. I had this one female student that worked for this makeup company. She was super sweet. I think, I'm not gonna say her name, but she treated me like I was her little sister. She was just my best friend in Japan. I enjoyed my lessons with her. She's the one who helped me when I lost my Beats by Dr. Dre, my earbuds. She went and walked all the way through the station and helped me retrieve them from the lost and found. It was super, super hard to find their lost and found. It was crazy. You couldn't stumble across it. You had to walk through doors that looked like they were only for staff members. So yeah, and it was a very detailed process. You had to give your ID, and I'm not going to go into all of that. I shared this post on Instagram if I recall, but long story short, I loved that student. And I had another student, one of my first ones, who I called my Japanese dad, one of many, and he was a regular student too. So I really regret the way that I left them, and another student that I had that was actually a pharmacist. So Like, they were all so sweet and so nice to me, and I really want to like message them, but I know it would be so inappropriate now, but I really hurt their feelings. She had just come back from a business trip in Italy, and she was super happy because I had prepared her for it. And then I sent her a message saying, oh, by the way, can't do a lesson next week, I'm leaving, bye. And then my other student who had scheduled a lesson with me actually canceled his lesson. And then when he tried to reschedule it, I accepted it and then told him, oh, by the way, I'm leaving, can't do the lesson anyway, bye. And then the other guy that was the pharmacy, guy, he didn't schedule a lesson yet, but like he always did it at the last minute, and I knew he was gonna do it. But I felt bad like telling him to. Like, I just feel like I let everyone down. I really wanted to stress to them that I still wanted to stay in contact and be their friends, and that I would even teach them English for free on Skype, because to me, they were like my friends and family. They kept me sane. They put money in my pocket, food in my stomach when I was a student, and I'll forever be grateful for those 3 people. They were some of my first 3 students, and I really feel like they helped me to become the teacher that I am today. Number 15, staying downtown and not exploring more. I feel like most foreigners kind of, some people do explore some more, but I feel like most foreigners, for the most part, stay in the downtown area. You want the cool videos that show all the people in Japan and how cool and crazy and colorful and all the electronics and whatnot and anime characters and whatever, the billboard signs, things that you see here. I get that. But I feel like I missed out on a lot of the suburban areas, the cool back streets, etc., because I didn't really explore much. I literally went to the same 3-4 stations every day. I stayed in Shibuya, which is where I lived, and I went to Shinjuku to go to school. And I didn't really go anywhere outside of these 2 places. Every once in a while, of course, for work, I would go to Akihabara, or I would go to, the Roppongi area, but I didn't really do, much outside of that. I pretty much stayed in that little clustered downtown area, super touristy place. I went to Chiba, I went to Yokohama, but even then, Yokohama is really a touristy spot too, so because of their Chinatown and the little harbor area and, military, etc., and Kanagawa. So anyway, long story short, I regret not, obviously, venturing out more. Number 16, not getting a gym membership. For starts, I feel like I would have been able to lose weight a lot more easily and consistently, and I could have made more friends, and it really would have just given me something to do, get my mind off of stress, and just make my life a lot more fun. I also probably wouldn't have had to spend so much time out walking late at night with complete creeps and strangers. I could have just gone to the gym at night. And I had my Chinese mom, who actually was trying to encourage me to get a membership, but she had a membership at a totally different gym, and I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And I'm actually glad, because I didn't want to use her gym, but I did want to get a membership at Anytime Fitness, which I currently do have, but I wish I'd gotten it sooner. Number 17, not getting a cell phone. I unfortunately was one of those people that wanted to get a phone right away initially, but at first I didn't have the proper visa for that. I was here on a temporary visa, and I tried to change to a student visa. I've gone over my story before. My school, Lakeland, screwed me over. Long story short, I had to go back to Chicago, get my visa, and then come back to Japan, even although I stressed out and asked them, are they sure that they'll be able to get me my visa even if I come before it is finalized. They told me with great certainty that they can do it. They've done it before, but it didn't work this time around, and I wasn't the only one. They screwed over about, I think, 5 or 6 other students, which I thought was odd. I thought that I was the only one that sent them that message asking, hey, found a good ticket price, I want to come to Japan before school starts, I don't want to wait on my COE to be ready, my COE actually was ready, but I forgot what it was. I didn't want to wait for it to come back to me, because I'd have to wait, those 2 weeks plus whatever. So long story short, really it could have been a month plus more, because I didn't know how long it was going to take for me to actually get the COE, but I figured that since I had it in my pocket, I can just go now. They've already accepted me. All I literally have to do is take this in my passport to immigration. So why would they say no? I tried it here in Japan. Nope. Tokyo sent my black ass all the way back. My school even came up to immigration and tried to beg them and explain the situation and about how it was going to cost me so much and it's Christmas time, whatever. Nope, they did not care. They put their foot down. Not our problem. Go back. And thankfully, I was able to go back, and my school did pay for it, and I also had the money to do this. But that would have been really bogus if I were a language school student. Imagine if you were in that situation as a language school student. Your school is not going to pay for your round trip to come back. And it was also a waste of money in other senses because my groceries went to waste and my rent went to waste because I had to go back to the US. I was paying for 2 months of rent that I wasn't even living in Japan. But of course, I couldn't afford to lose my apartment for going back for 2 months. For 2 weeks. And I couldn't, take my food with me or hurry up and eat it. So I just had to give stuff away and let it expire or whatever. So that's that. Yeah. I wish that I didn't wait until my visa got near its expiration to decide, hey, maybe I should get another cell phone. I was so satisfied using my phone because I could use Line, and I knew that there were loopholes to get like a Japanese phone number, etc. But I didn't get like a real Japanese cell phone because by the time I had the money and had the thought, hey, maybe I should get a real phone here. And it's not really a total need, but again, my visa wasn't good for long enough. Your visa has to be valid for the duration of your contract, which is generally 1 to 2 years, and my visa was no longer good for long enough by the time I got the bright idea to want to get one. So yeah, that was a regret, not having a phone. And next, number 18, similar to number 17, but not having a Japanese bank account. I don't feel like these problems really hindered me a lot, but I feel like having these things would have helped me like in situations where I felt unsafe, being able to make a real phone call and not just rely on Line, for example, like being able to call the police, etc., and not need Line credits or whatever. And I didn't even know about Line credits back then, if I recall. But yeah, and then not having to rely on, a pocket Wi-Fi device. And I did have my international cell phone service, but of course that's expensive to make like international calls. So, and then of course, just like a part of assimilating, getting, a Japanese phone number. But for having a bank account, of course, it limited the places that I could work. And I kind of like believed a lot of the stuff that I read online. I read so many blogs and articles and heard so many stories from people saying that, they give you a hard time as a foreigner if you try to get a bank account. And I didn't feel confident or comfortable walking into a bank. Like, how do I ask them to get an account? I can't speak Japanese. And I didn't know that there was so much available, so much information in English that could have helped me, as well as people that could have easily helped me open up a bank account. So I regret not trying to get these things early on and waiting until I did get an apartment and waiting until I did get a full-time job to try things out for myself, just spending too much time listening to other people's advice and opinions on what you can and cannot do, and not thinking for myself, so to speak. And kind of piggybacking off of what I just said right there, number 19, letting other people's bad experiences control me. And so what I mean by that is like, I feel like, not to say that people's experience aren't real or valid, but I feel like we get so consumed, so wrapped up in other people's bad experiences that we forget this is their experience, their story. And not to tell you to like blindly walk into stuff. You should definitely take bad experiences into consideration. It can happen to you. It can save you time and money. But I feel like I was more paranoid about being in Japan my first year because I was so worried about having these bad negative experiences. And while some of these things did happen, or maybe they happened and not in so much as bad of a way as I thought it was, based on what I had, read, saw, or heard from other people, I feel like that paranoia made me think it was a bigger deal than it really was, or made me more worried about the build up to it happening than I actually was when something did happen. So it's not that you have to hide or pretend like, bad things don't happen, but at the same time, you do need to balance what you listen to, what you believe, etc. Everything in Japan is not going to be awful, just like everything won't be great, as I said before. And I feel like I spent so much time listening to other people's negativity that it added to my anxiety and just made me feel awful the whole time I was here. So while I did have fun in these circumstances, I also spent a lot of time secretly feeling self-conscious, feeling insecure, feeling like I wasn't enough, feeling like I was being judged by the world, when really that wasn't quite exactly the case. I was judging myself more than Japanese people were judging me or thinking bad things about me. And last but not least, again, piggybacking off of the last 2 points, 18 and 19, number 20, trying to fit in. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make here as foreigners is trying so hard to fit in. I've read and seen posts from people that complain about not being accepted or seen as Japanese, and while I do understand how you feel, for those of you that have been here for a long time, you feel like you're really Japanese and you're not really, whatever country you came from. I feel like it's something that, while it isn't right, I feel like it's something that really just deserves to be embraced. I don't want to say accepted, but embraced in a sense. I see this is a very poor choice of words, but I can't think of a better way to put it. This is just what comes to mind. I think of how black people have used the N-word and turned it from, or even calling ourselves black, because really that's an insult too. Is our skin legitimately like the same color as my hair? No. So I feel like it's something that we should turn and see as a good thing. I don't know why you want to fit in and be exactly like everyone else. Are Japanese people perfect? Is this country perfect? Like, I don't think so. I am happy that I'm not the same as everyone. I'm happy that I stand out. I'm happy that I'm exotic, that I'm different, that my culture, my food, everything. I don't want to be them. I want to respect where I'm at. I admire and like things from Japanese fashion. I admire things about their makeup, their beliefs, their manners, their opinions on stuff. I can like and agree with and support these things, but I don't care to be viewed as one of them. And I feel like when I first came here, I was so concerned about standing out. I didn't want to be too fat. I didn't want to be too tall. I didn't want to be anything that said that I was me. And it was so pointless, stupid, and wasted because they can clearly see that I am not them. And so I really wish that I could just get that time back. Again, going back into being anxious about everything. I feel like it was such a waste trying to fit in, even at school, like with clubs and cliques, etc. Trying to fake and pretend interest and make small talk with people that I feel like it was just to fit in. Like I wasn't being myself. And I feel like I'm happiest when I'm myself, like how I think anyone should be. I would rather people see me as being boring, quiet, and weird for being myself than for me to be this fake, super obnoxious, flamboyant person in order to get people to love me. And of course, people also hate me then too, because then I'm too loud and whatever. So just spending so much time trying to be a people pleaser, trying to be what I think everyone wants me to look like and act like. So that's that. Those are my 20 things that I regret during my time of being here in Japan. My life is still not perfect. I have more regrets on the way, unfortunately. I'm human. I'm not beating myself up about it, but I just want to kind of share and be transparent with you and tell you that there's things that I regret and wish I did differently too. I'm not always nice to people. I don't always make the best decisions. I've quit jobs that I wish I didn't quit, including recently. There's so many things that I've done and said that I can't take back. But time moves on, everything happens for a reason, and maybe the reason that I've gone through these things is to warn other people to not be like me. I hope that I can help and save other people from making my mistakes. So that's that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. If you've been in Japan for a minute, maybe you can share some tips or things that you personally regret and wish that you did differently and help someone else out as well. As always, I'd appreciate it if you would also follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and I have a Snapchat and a Facebook fan page that you can like too. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.